Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Japan and we're going to return to a brewery that has now featured on the channel quite a few times before. Now, these guys are still a relatively new addition to the Japanese beer scene, but they've built up a very good reputation for themselves over the last couple of years. And if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they're most definitely best known for their different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs, although I have noticed that in very recent times they have been experimenting with a few different styles as well, and long may that continue. I look forward to seeing more things from these guys. But the beer that we're going to have a look at today is one of their latest releases at the time of filming, which is late December 2024. It's a style that I have had from this brewery quite a few times before, one that I know they can do very well, but I would also say that it's one of the stronger beers that I've had from these guys thus far. So needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we're going to head a bit north of me here in Osaka up to Aichi Prefecture, and we're going to go to the Nagoya area, out to the east of the city to a little place called Nagakuta, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Totopia Brewery. So this particular beer is called Forcephobia. It comes in at 8% ABV, and this one is another New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, we've had a good number of New England Hazies from Totopia over the last maybe 2-3 years, if I'm remembering the time span right. But yeah, this is one of the stronger ones that I've reviewed from them on the channel. I think we've only had one or two 8%ers from these guys thus far, so yeah, it should be interesting. I heard very good things about this one, and I actually bought this one at their pub in Nagoya, a beer pub Brick Lane, so really cool to get something at source from these guys and very fresh. So let's crack on with this one and see what it's going to have in store for us. The Forcephobia 8% New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Totopia Brewery in Nagakuta, Aichi Prefecture here in Japan. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Totopia Brewery before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. I've got a couple of cans waiting in the fridge to review from these guys as well. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I review beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Japanese playlist along with a number of other things. That's being added to quite regularly at the moment because I'm publishing one of my little mini series of Japanese beers from one of my visits. But do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Totopia Brewery once again then. So Totopia Brewery, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Nagakuta in Aichi Prefecture, which is just out to the east of Nagoya, and the brewery was founded back in 2022, and it is the latest venture of the team behind Beer Pub Brick Lane in Nagoya City. So Beer Pub Brick Lane was founded back in 2014 by Junya Morita along with his wife Akiko and 3 other friends, and this has become a really well-known beer and burger spot in the city, and it is definitely worth checking out. I've got an out and about video coming out from that very soon. But the following year in 2015 they started the Nagoya Craft Beer Map, and they started doing market research in the US in order to form their own import company, and they began importing American beers into Japan back in 2017. Following the success of this venture, they opened up their own beer shop, which is called Use Like New Beer, in 2018, and this also acts as a sandwich shop as well, from what I understand. But at this point, they had decided that they wanted to get into brewing their own beer, so they started planning to form their own brewery, and they took the name Totopia as a combination of the Japanese word toto, which means like precious, valuable, revered, something like this, and also utopia, and everybody knows what Utopia is. But the location of the brewery had originally been planned as Seto City, but this had to be changed quite suddenly, and they found their current plot of 600 square meters in Nagakuta, which is east of the city, and then they went from there. So the brewery released their first beers during the second half of 2022, and they said at the time that they're going to focus on local ingredients in their beers as well as harvesting their own hops, and they have made quite a little bit of inroads in that, but they're still working on it quite a bit too, from what I understand. These days, at the kind of unofficial tap room, if you like, of Totopia Brewery is still Beer Pub Brick Lane. You can also get these beers used like new beer as well. And from what I understand, the brewery opens up on a Saturday and Sunday, and they have their beers in cans. There isn't a tap system there yet, but yeah, you can go and actually try some of the beers at the brewery. So maybe that's something I need to do in the future as well. But as of December 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 140 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. And like I mentioned at the start of the video, they are particularly well known for their New England Hazy IPAs, but I've seen one or two lagers from them. I think I've seen a black IPA, and they're using a few more adjuncts and things in their beers now. So I'm sure over the next wee while we'll start to see more and more styles emerging from Totopia Brewery. But yeah, very, very well known for those New England hazies, and that's kind of propelled them to fame, if you like. So yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Totopia Brewery for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on then and have a little look at the beer itself. So yeah, on the Untappd page, and I think that's what's on the can here, it was saying that they'd experimented a little bit with kind of different pHs and things like that in this particular IPA. But the hops in this one are Nectaron from New Zealand, Nelson Sauvin also New Zealand, and Citra from the US. Nectaron is about 10-11% alpha acid. It's going to give you a little bit of peach and a little bit of pineapple and stuff like that. Really interesting, quite new hop. Nelson Sauvin, of course, we know from New Zealand as well, 16% alpha acid, that kind of white, green, grapey, gooseberry sort of flavour. And then Citra is 14% alpha acid, and it's going to give you that big juicy mango and yeah, quite a little bit of like passion fruit and things like that in New England Hazy IPA too. But yeah, the artwork on this one is very nice, quite different actually to what we've seen before from Totopia. You can see one of the Totopia symbols on the bottom of the can there. Plain silver top there, incidentally. This one is what is a 0.5 litre can, 500 millilitres, however you want to say it. And I bought this one, like I said, at Beer Pub Brick Lane in Nagoya. I think I paid about 1,500 yen for this can, come to think of it. So that's about £7.50, 75 Hong Kong dollars, maybe about €8.50, 85 Swedish krona, about $9 American, something like that. But yeah, 8% New England Hazy double IPA, this one, Forcephobia. I like the name as well, being a chemistry, physics, maths teacher once upon a time. So yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass and see what it's all about. It's only my second, maybe third at most, New England double IPA on the channel from these guys. Most of them have been singles, but yeah, let's do this and see what we have here. I'm very much looking forward to this one. So yeah, so there we go. This one, I think it's looking a little bit brighter on the camera than it actually is to the naked eye, but we've maybe got about 80% of the beer out and into the glass at this point, and you can see that it's poured with about a finger and a half of a frothy, I would say kind of cream coloured head there. Smaller bubbles on the surface of the liquid, and then it's a little bit foamier the further up that you go. But yeah, colour wise, this one's like a kind of dark mixed tropical fruit juice. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few different things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts that you put into it will affect the colour as well, but you don't often have to care about those latter two variables when it comes to different kinds of IPAs. But yeah, this one, I always like comparing New England IPAs to different fruit juices because that's really just what their appearance reminds me of. But yeah, this one, I have to say there's not really much in the way of visible carbonation with this beer. In terms of the level of haziness from it, it's kind of about what you would expect from a New England double as well. And the haziness, of course, depends on oat content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use. But all in all, nothing particularly surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance when you consider what style it is, and you can see that head has receded away a little bit to just give a kind of maybe about a half finger head at this point. So yeah, I think we can have a little look at the aroma of this one now and see how we go. Ooh, interesting. Yeah, this is like a more barley malt and kind of bready leaning New England IPA for me. So as I've often said in my New England reviews, for me there are 6 different aspects to the malty and yeasty side of a New England IPA. You've got the kind of farmhousey yeasty type character and the rye leaning grainy side of things. Those are a bit more common in New England brewed New England IPAs, the kind of OG ones. But you've also got wheaty bitiness, barley malt bread, oaty creaminess, and also the sweeter side of things. And those are the 4 elements that are more common, if you like, in New England IPAs brewed in other places. As the style moved away from New England, it's kind of evolved a wee bit in a lot of places, like the more kind of sweet and creamy type of New England IPA. But for me, this one really leans a little bit more toward the barley malt side of things. It's quite soft and kind of grainy. There's a good little bit of the yeasty character coming out of this one, but I will say the more whiffs I get of this, the more wheaty character comes out of it as well. Lovely bright green component, soft kind of juicy grassiness in there as well. And I think, was it the Citra that was cryo? Yeah, you can smell a wee bit of that kind of oiliness to the green component as well. But let's just break the aroma down then and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. So yeah, the backbone of this beer, you've got a lovely little bit of a kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there. You're always going to get that in these New England IPAs. Beyond that, there's a little bit of like woody character. I very often get that as well. Quite a bit of cracker in this one. This beer, it does have a little bit of a drier aspect to it. But yeah, nice kind of Jacob's cream cracker. Quite a bit of that, like I said. Little touch of grainier brown bread in this one, but a good little bit of a soft kind of fluffy white bread in there. And then above that, you start to smell the more dense wheaty white bread coming out of this one. At the back of the nose, you've got a little bit of bitiness in there, but other than that, the wheat's actually quite smooth. As I've often said, for me, European wheat is a little bit kind of drier and more bitey than, say, North American wheat, which I think is a bit smoother. This one actually has a little touch of sweetness to it, so I'm wondering if it's a wee bit of Australian wheat that's in this one. Always little interesting tidbits to think about, and I'm an ingredients nerd, so that's why I always like talking about these things. But yeah, there is a wee bit of oaty character to this one. This beer is pretty fresh, but the oats are coming across as a little bit drier in this one. Makes me think maybe American oats. But yeah, you can smell a little bit of that oaty creaminess in there. And there's a wee bit of sweetness as well. At 8% ABV, you would kind of expect that. Yeah, there's that little bit of like Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotch type thing, but not too much. This beer isn't overly brown sugary sweet. It is the sweetness. A lot of that is coming from the actual kind of bready malts, if you like. But there's a wee touch of biscuit in there. And yeah, I don't know if there's too much else we really need to say about the malty aspects of this particular beer. But yeah, the yeasty side of things in this one's quite interesting too. I actually find that the yeasty character in this beer is a little touch farmhousey. Like at the back of the nose, there's a wee bit of that kind of like, there's a bit of that kind of cream cracker, more rustic, like farmhousey kind of bready character coming out of this one, and I really like that about this particular beer. It's quite interesting, this one, and I do like that about breweries that kind of specialise in the New England IPAs. They'll always just muck around with the malt base a little bit and try and get different nuances to the flavour. I've always been very interested in the creative process that brewers go through. Do they choose the hops first, or do they choose the malt base first and then the hops based on what they want from the malt base. Interesting things, or do they simply do it based on what ingredients they have? You never know. But yeah, the yeasty character in this one at the back of the nose is quite nice. Yeah, I like that. So, don't know if there's much else to say about the malty and yeasty side of things then. So let's move on to the hoppy side of the beer. So yeah, the green component for me, there is a little touch of dankness to this one the more that you smell of it, but again, you get the nice oily character out of this. And it is worth remembering that there are 3 different types of hoppings. When it comes to your IPAs, you've got early edition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort boil. That gives you mainly bitterness and a deep dank green component. You've got late edition hopping, which takes place within the last half hour of your wort boil. That gives you a wee touch of bitterness, but also quite a little bit of flavour and aroma, a very bright green component normally. Then you've got dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, and that one is all about flavour and aroma, and again gives you a very, very bright green component in there. So yeah, New England IPAs tend to rely on late edition and dry hopping. It's not uncommon to use a little bit of early edition hopping in there, but yeah, West Coast IPAs use all 3, which is why they are deeper and danker and more bitter, and why New England IPAs are that bit softer and juicier and more creamy. But anyway, your green component in this one, there's a little touch of earthiness to it, but the green side of the hops really leans more toward that kind of floral aromatic sort of thing. There is a wee bit of a zesty, grassy kind of character coming out of this beer as well. And yeah, I think the way that that pieces together is quite nice. You can smell the oiliness, which is attributable to the cryo, the use of the cryo citra in this particular beer. So yeah, I like that about this one, I really do. But yeah, the green component in this gets more and more oily the more that you smell of it. So yeah, I think we can round off the aroma with a look at the fruits. So for me, fruity side of this beer, you have definitely the peach is very obvious in this one. That's your nectaron that's going to give you that, and the citra will contribute to that as well. There is a little bit of passion fruit in there, but quite a lot of mango for me, and definitely pineapple as well. That's for sure. But yeah, the Nelson Sauvin, I think, the more that I smell of this one, the more and more of the Nelson Sauvin I get. So the tropical notes in this one, of course, will come from your nectaron and your citra. So yeah, the peach I think is more coming from the nectaron in this one. The big juicy mango is going to be more the citra. And yeah, there's wee touches of like apricot and stuff like that. Pineapple, like I said, pineapple I think is more nectaron. But yeah, at the front of the nose, at the very front of the nose, you are really getting that kind of white, green, grapey stuff from the Nelson Sauvin, and that's pretty damn obvious in this one. That lovely kind of gooseberry-like note, maybe very slightly limey as well, actually. Yeah, interesting stuff. So, as I always say, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. That's always half the experience with craft beers, in my opinion. But yeah, I think we've had a look at this one quite in depth. So let's have a taste of it now and see how we go. So yeah, this one is the Forcephobia, an 8% New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA from the wonderful Totopia Brewery in Nagakuta, just to the east of Nagoya in Aichi Prefecture here in Japan. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, cheers, kanpai. That's nice. First impression, very soft, juicy, and quite drinkable New England IPA. I very often say about Japanese beers that they're just a little bit lighter and cleaner in their mouthfeel, and I think that is just because of the kind of Japanese stereotypical vision of beer. They always view beer as being something that should be light and drinkable and goes down easy, and you do get an element of that in every Japanese beer, regardless of what style it is. Even some of the imperial stouts and things like that. But yeah, this one definitely has that. It's a bit dangerously drinkable for an 8%er, to be honest with you, but really, really nice beer. It gives you everything you want from the style. So once again, thumbs up to the wonderful Totopia for this beer. This is good, but it feels a wee bit different from what I've had from them before. Some of the yeasty character, and it's a little bit drier actually too. But yeah, that is pretty damn nice. So let's have a wee look at the rest of this then. I think it got just a little bit more murky as we put the last of the beer into the glass there, but yeah, this is really good. So let's do as we always do then, and we'll break the flavour down and describe it for you more in depth. Middle third of your palate, the backbone of the beer, you've got that lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there, which is great. As you move further forward on there, as you move further forward in there, you've got a little bit of a kind of woody sort of note coming out of this one. So there's a little touch of that woodiness there, and that lingers into the aftertaste. But yeah, this one, when you first take it in, it really is like more kind of soft and juicy and quite clean actually. The dryness and stuff comes out into the aftertaste. So yeah, fresh white bready bread crust, little bit of fresh white bready bread crust, little bit of woodiness in there, the kind of cracker sitting on top of that, and then yeah, you've got all the bready notes in there. So it's mainly white bread, but I want to say there's a little kind of sprinkle, a very thin layer of like a kind of more wholemeal brown bready type character in there. But yeah, definitely above that you can feel the fluffier white bread from the barley malt in there, and I would say above that you start to get the wheat, and the wheat I think shows more kind of, the wheat shows a little bit more kind of bitiness the further into the aftertaste that you go, but definitely yeah, above the barley malt white bread you have the more dense and smooth wheaty white bread. So yeah, the way that goes together is really, really nice in this one. So yeah, that really is very, very nice for sure. So yeah, the wheaty character in this one's really nice. As I've often said, sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back, and you can see a little bit of that going on in this beer. You have the you definitely have a little bit of the kind of smoother side of the wheat further forward, but yeah, toward the back of that toward the back of that middle third of your palate, you've definitely got a wee bit more kind of bitiness there, but the wheaty layer in this is really nice. So yeah, on top of that you have a really nice bit of oaty character. So down the middle line of your palate you've got that lovely kind of creamier side of the oats, and as you move out toward the edges of your palate, it's definitely got a little bit more of a kind of, you're getting the kind of drier side of oats. But in the very, very dead centre of your palate, there's that little circle where it's the world's original butter candy butterscotch, and that is of course the booze in the beer. This one does cover its booze very, very well, I will add that, but yeah, you do notice that really kind of sweet, that big boozy sweetness there in the middle of your palate. But then yeah, as you move further out towards the as you move a little bit further out from that, you start to get a little element of kind of biscuity character as well, like a McVitie's digestive biscuity note. So yeah, the way that goes together in this beer is also pretty damn nice actually. So thumbs up to Totopia for the malty side of this beer. I think they've done a really good job there. So yeah, let's leave the middle third of the palate then and go to the back third of the palate. As I've often said, the back third of your palate will give you very similar flavours to the middle third of your palate. You've got the yeast on top though, but some of those flavours come out in different intensities. So yeah. So, border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there, the little touch of brown bread in the base, the barley malt white bread in the middle, and the more dense wheaty white bread on top. But yeah, the base of that back third of your palate, you've got a nice little bit of a kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there again. It's a little bit drier, of course. You've got the crackery layer in there. The brown bready layer is that little bit taller and more noticeable, I would say. Then you've got the barley malt white bread above that. Then you can feel a kind of more dense but still quite tall wheaty character coming out of this one. And the wheat definitely has a little bit more kind of bitiness coming out of it. Yeah, there's a little bit more bitiness coming out of it for sure. And then above all of that, you've got the kind of yeasty side of the beer too, which I do really like. Yeah. So, yeasty side of the beer then, let's look at that. At its core, it's quite a, it's got quite a nice, dense, sweet brown bready note coming out of it. So yeah, nice kind of dense, sweet brown bready character in the middle. Then around the edge of that, you start to get a little bit more of that kind of rusticy, farmhousey, grainy white bread. Then the very edge of the yeast is a little bit more kind of, it's a little bit more kind of crackery and bread crusty, I would say. So, and yeah, it does get a bit drier into the aftertaste too. So yeah, I really, really like how all of that pieces together, in fact. So yeah, definitely. And back third of the palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, really, really do like how all of that pieces together in this beer. As I say, it gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, so on the, I think that's everything we need to say about the malty and yeasty side of things. Let's go to the hoppy side of the beer. Green component. Back corners of the palate, I'm actually getting a fair little bit of earthiness out of this one, and it builds a decent bridge with the graininess of this beer that is more obvious into the aftertaste. So yeah, lovely little bit of earthy kind of hoppy character in there. Then as you move further forward, it's a little bit more herbal and things, and then yeah, as you push further forward from that, it's got a little bit more floral aromaticity and things coming out of it. And you can feel it gradually gets more oily the further forward on the sides of the palate you go to. But round the front curve of the tongue, the beer is definitely kind of lighter, more grassy, I would say, and so a little bit of zestiness to it as well. But yeah, the oily nature of that green component is definitely coming from the cryo in this instance. So yeah, let's go to the front third of your palate then, round off the tasting with a look at the fruity side of things. So yeah, border region between front and middle third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there. Brown bread in the base, the white barley malt bread there in the middle, pardon me, and the more dense wheaty white bread on top. But yeah, the base of that front third of your palate, you've got a nice little bit of white bready bread crust in there. You have the Jacob's cream cracker again, the brown bread, the white bread, and the more dense wheaty note in there. And that part of the wheat is very, very smooth actually, and that's nice. And then yeah, you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So let's look at that fruity side of things. Yeah, fruity side of this beer, actually, I'm finding that it's grown on me. The more that I've drunk of this beer, actually, it's really nicely balanced. It's very, very soft and very juicy and slightly, I don't know if oily is the right word, but it's kind of oily but kind of soft and creamy at the same time. So yeah, at the back of that front third of your palate, you've got a really nice yeah, at the back of that front third of your palate, you've got a really nice little touch of grapefruit in there, which is going to come from the Citra. But yeah, as you move further forward from that, there's quite a little bit of that peachy, I don't know if sharpness is the right word, but that kind of more slightly pungent peachy character. But yeah, beyond that, as you move further forward, lots and lots of juicy mango. There's a bit of passion fruit and apricot underneath that, and a wee bit of juicy pineapple as well. But then yeah, the front half of that front third of your palate is all about the Nelson Sauvin. Those other elements I'm mentioning there are going to come from your Nectaron and your Citra that are in this one. But yeah, front half of the front third of your palate's all about that white, green, grapey, gooseberry type flavour of the Nelson Sauvin. There's maybe just a little touch of lime on the kind of front tip of your tongue when the fruits start mixing with the kind of grassy esters and things in there. But yeah, the fruity side of this beer is really very, very nice. Yeah, this is quite different, I think, in terms of its profile and the fruity side of things in particular. This is quite different from the other IPAs I've had from Totopia thus far. So yeah, kind of reminds me of quite a few of the Apex brewing beers that I had from Sweden in the day. So yeah, it's good stuff, very good stuff actually. So happy and very happy with this. Yeah, so let's round off this review then with a wee quick look at the mouthfeel. So for me, this beer, it's mid-bodied, maybe pushing top end of mid-bodied. Carbonation is very, very smooth. As I mentioned earlier in the video, it has that element of, just Japanese cleanliness to it. You can taste that this water is very clean, very, very good quality. And that helps the drinkability of the beer. A lot of these flavours you get come out in the aftertaste. I would say it's just a wee thing I've noticed with Japanese beers. A lot of flavours evolve on the palate rather than kind of impact, if that makes sense. But yeah, lovely cleanliness to this beer. And I would say, yeah, mid-bodied, smooth carbonation. Has a bit of oily slickness to it as well, but then the creamier and drier aspects come out in the aftertaste. IBU wise, I think this is a kind of standard 30, maybe 40 IBU beer. It might be 40 because of that slightly higher ABV that it has, but the malt base, a bit dry underneath, smoother in the middle, and a kind of drier sweetness on top. Not the creamiest of New England IPAs, a slightly drier take on the style, I would say. Your green component in this one has a bit more oiliness to it as well because of the use of cryo, and then yeah, you've got that lovely oily fruity character coming out of it. The tropical fruits are a bit more dry, but then yeah, the gooseberry Nelson Sauvin side of things is a little bit more oily, I would say. But all in all, another very, very solid New England hazy from Totopia Brewery. And I really wouldn't expect anything less from these guys. They really know what they're doing in this particular style category. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This was the Forcephobia, an 8% New England Hazy, Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA from the wonderful Totopia Brewery in Nagakuta in Aichi Prefecture in central Japan. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Totopia Brewery as well. And we will definitely return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. So yeah, check out my social media, check out their social media, and I'll see you guys at another review very, very shortly. Till then, ciao just now.